Hey, Vital Man. This last Sunday, I was concluding our series called It's Complicated, talking about relationships, and there was this verse that stood out, specifically a part of the verse that just kind of blew off the page, and it was this. In 1 Corinthians 13, Paul's describing the definition of love. At the very end, he says, love, it always protects, always trusts, always hopes, and always perseveres. And protects, sure, makes sense. Love is always looking to protect somebody else. Always hopes, okay, that's on me. I need to choose hope. Always perseveres. Okay, once again, this is about me going through good times and bad times. It's about perseverance. The one that stood out, though, was this one. Love always trusts. Wait, I thought trust was earned. And Paul's like, no. In love, trust is just given. So, and here's where it stood out. There is our expectations, especially when it comes to relationships, of what we hope happens. Then there is our experience. So, what we want to have happen, and then what actually happened. In the middle is the gap. And the question is, what do you do with the gap? And I think that there's ultimately two options. You can either believe the best or assume the worst. And I think our tendency is, in the gap, to judge other people by their actions, specifically that person, that significant other, or ex significant other. And we judge them by our actions and judge ourselves by our intentions. I didn't intend for you to receive it that way. I didn't intend for you to see my actions in that light. I didn't intend fill in the blank. But your actions said, it's never I think your intentions were. It's always we judge by the actions. And there's this book called One Thing You Need to Know, where a guy named Marcus Buckingham was looking into business and relationships and trying to figure out how does he build a work environment where over time there's longevity as company and people just get along. And he did a 20-year study of happy couples that were married for a long time and enjoyed each other more over time. And his assumption was over time they downgraded their expectations, and what the results they actually found was the opposite. What they found was these couples that had enjoyed each other for so long and their marriage was in a better place than it had ever been wasn't the fact that they didn't have hard times. In fact, they all went through challenging times. The difference was in how they saw each other. He said it like this. He says they had an illusion of their spouse. And that illusion was that they had the best of intentions. And because they looked at them in that certain light, they just expected great things from them. And when some semblance of the illusion was reinforced, the illusion created a conviction, meaning they actually began to believe the illusion was completely true. And when the conviction was set in place, it led to security, as in, I'm safe in this relationship because you are this kind of a person. And security, because they felt safe in the relationship, the level of intimacy was very high. And intimacy is just into me see. Like, you get to see the vulnerable places of me. Intimacy then fostered love. And love created this, what he called an upward spiral of reinforcing the illusion, which once again creates the deeper conviction, a more intense sense of security, a deeper intimacy, and a stronger love, starting the cycle all over again. Well, I think it's great because Paul said it 2,000 years before. Love always protects, always trusts, always hopes, always perseveres. What he's saying? He's saying the same thing. Well, in the book, the recommendation was find the most generous explanation for each other's behavior and believe it. What's he saying? There's a gap between your experience and what actually happened. And what you do in the gap is as important and impacts the results as much as the gap that was created. So, what are you going to do with the gap? Find the most generous explanation for that person's behavior and believe it. Because love doesn't delight in evil. It rejoices in the truth. Or you can choose option B. It's easier. It's so much easier to choose option B Although I think it's so much more destructive. The reason we choose option B is things that we've experienced. We're like, well, they did it again, they did it again, knew it. And then there's all of who we are, where we bring a whole bunch of stuff into our relationships and it just gets really, really messy. So what's option B? Option B is this. Option A is you can always protect, always hope, always trust, and always persevere. Option B is you can delight in uncovering mistakes. You can thrive on speculation, you can assume the worst, and you can embrace doubt. I don't know about you, but I don't want to live that kind of jaded. Even if life throws everything it can at me, I don't want to live in option B. So again, what's option A? Trust. Trust looks a lot like acceptance. And the people that you want to let down the least are the people that you want the acceptance from the most. The people you want to trust the most. So, let's just say you're in a relationship where trust has been broken. Hey, that's every one of us. What you do then in the gap, when there has been a pattern of distrust, you have to talk about it. It's so important that you don't just ignore it, you don't sweep it under the rug, you don't explode and overpower and delight in evil or make the problem worse, because that's not love either. Love is you have the conversation, but as soon as the conversation is over, you go back to trust. To lay down the American way of you need to re-earn my trust, and you go back to the Jesus way of I give it to you. I'm going to find the most generous explanation, and I'm going to believe it until you fully convince me that I can't do it anymore, and then we have a conversation, and after the conversation, I go back to love. And some of you are like, there's no way I could do that or want to do that. My friends, that's what following Jesus is all about. It's a standard that requires his ability in us to empower us to do things we can't do on our own. So vital men, today, lean into God and choose trust. Have a good one.